Hello everyone and welcome back to Beyond the Veil background information. We're doing an Angels and Demons video, and for the next 3 videos we're going to be covering the 3 Angels of Death I've used in my Beyond the Veil universe. These are Azrael, Suriel, not to be confused with Sariel, and Sammael. Today we're going to talk about Azrael first, and as always how this works is I will give you a quote from a story the character that the angel is mentioned in. Then I'll give you the background information. That's the information I have from like the Dictionary of Angels and online resources, and sometimes even with the angels in particular, you have like guardian angel cards and oracle cards that give you a little information of them and stuff, and gives you a bit of an idea of them. And I sort of mix that all in to then give you a profile for the character within my universe and how they are portrayed in the universe. So let's get started. I have one of the cats next to me while I'm doing this, so you may hear bells and the little sounds of a cat purring. You are still sitting by his side. I would not have expected such loyalty from a demon that had fulfilled its contract, but you seem so sad, Emil. Do you wish to talk about it? The strange shadowy figure with the deep resonating voice that would scare a mortal yet help so many souls realize they had passed stepped to the demon's side with a comforting stretch of its hand. The demon was surprised. It seemed even the angel of death would comfort a grieving demon. So a quote from the demon butler. Though their name is often mixed up with Azrael or used for a more dark connotation, i.e. naming devils Azrael, this angel is best described in the thought that when we die, we don't really want to do it alone, and Azrael is the comfort. Though their image has shifted from that of a kind face to lead you away to the terrifying image of the scythe-wielding Grim Reaper, the Archangel Azrael is synonymous with depictions of death and is in fact one of the most prominent angels of death, a peaceful death though. Their name is thought to mean either angel of God or help of God, and though mentioned briefly in some traditions of Judaism, introduced into Christianity through looking into named angels, even popping up mentioned in Sikhism, Islam is where Azrael's existence is most prominent. Playing the role of the psychopomp, or the one to guide the dead into the next part of the afterlife, the role itself is one that many older mythologies and religions were used to accepting, and so to have an angel in such a role is just a progression of this. In Judaism and Islam, Azrael arrives with a scroll, where the fate of the mortal lies, and it is their duty to erase the name at death from the scroll. Their role is therefore gentle and benevolent, but popular culture has a preference for easy names, and being an angel of death, Azrael often gets put in the shade. In Islam, they are identified as one of the 4 archangels and are said to correspond with Malak al-Muat. Sorry if I'm not very good with the pronunciations. Roughly translated to angel of death, corresponding to a similar role once again in the rabbinic literature. Name-wise, it's a name mentioned in Hebrew before Islam, but its association with death and more common use doesn't turn up until after Islam, and a version of the name appears in the Ethiopian Apocalypse of Peter to an angel that dwells in hell, but their duty is to avenge all those wronged in life. But in Islam, we see Azrael as the one to take the soul from the body under the orders of God, that 40 days before a being dies, a leaf from a tree beneath the heavenly throne, which holds the name for Azrael to collect, drops to him. But also that an angel of death equated to Azrael stands on the edge of hell and tells those souls waiting for help within that they must wait. Seemingly, angels of death have no issue stepping into hell or heaven. As for descriptions, like many angels in Islam, Azrael is equated to having many wings, 4,000 with half being wings of punishment that are made of hooks and iron rods, whilst the others are wings of grace and presumably more colourful and normal perhaps. Once again, that sort of hints towards the fact that Azrael's role is to remove any soul, and that includes good or bad, but the description also states that they have a shape resembling a blue ram, numerous eyes, numerous limbs, and so huge they can carry the whole world upon their shoulders. It must be said, though, that these descriptions all come from different people, and yet certainly paint a curious image of the angel of death, and there are, of course, other variations to these that I've mentioned. This is in complete contrast to Western descriptions of Azrael, who is depicted in one poem as wearing a black hooded cloak. Later poems refer to an angel of death as bearing the scythe or being a weeper, and make a point that not Sammael, whom we'll talk about next month, but in fact are most likely Azrael. The mixing of plague imagery and the idea of an angel of death meant that Azrael's more benevolent role was altered into something to be feared within Western belief, and later scholars in angels debate whether it was Azrael or Sammael who was ordered to fell Egypt's firstborn. But modern scholars on angels, those who like to use angels to discern guidance and gain protection, have maintained the more benevolent role of Azrael as the guide to the next stage, and though Azrael is the name of the angel of death most known in popular culture, it is in fact the manner of Sammael that are known more, and my own interpretation of the angels of death in my universe includes this on Azrael. Name Azrael. Position Angel of Peaceful Death. Story appears in Demon Butler so far. Role Advisor to the Demon Emil. Gender agender. Description the colour grey is often about them, and at first they can appear massive with many wings of varying shades, and some can appear dangerous and fearful. But as Azrael settles, their wings lounge about themselves as a grey cloak covered in many eyes. They have no real colour to them, they are just a glowing aura in the shape of a human that stretches out a hand and beckons a squirrel sitting within the other. As they speak in a deep and commanding tone, but the words are always gentle. Realm, heaven. Abilities: they can guide the soul from the body and give help to grieving families by giving them an ear to listen, or a voice for their words. They share the warm and loving thoughts the departed has for their family, and often are the one to send that curious sensation to family to say that someone has passed. They only arrive for the passing of those in peaceful circumstances, often in their sleep, during surgery, or in hospital, and yet they have a tendency to also visit those in deep trouble, unable to cope, to be able to pull back at the last minute and remind them there is hope. Master the Almighty. Personality: gentle, sombre, compassionate, and yet straightforward. There is no bargaining with Azrael, and there is only acceptance, and yet all the kindness one can hope for when being steered to the next level. Whether sinner or saint, Azrael is unbiased and knows only their duty and the love held for that one soul upon its departure. They would rather ensure hope is given, and will always tell the soul one final thing of joy from their life to be held onto for the next stage. They also like the mourners not to be forgotten, and encourage good memories or even silly little jokes to bubble up. Azrael's compassion is in the understanding that no soul is truly alone, and always seeks to make sure no one passes without someone getting at least the thought of them to remember. Relations: Gabriel. The step into heaven's sphere, Azrael most commonly works alongside Gabriel and Metatron, with Gabriel often choosing to counsel Azrael and encourage the compassion for all human life. Azrael views Gabriel as a wise teacher. Metatron, another teacher to them. Metatron's own past as a human meant that they became a source of understanding for Azrael on how to appear to humans and how to help them grieve. Lucifer, the one to awaken them. Azrael has some appreciation for Lucifer, but does not approve of their decisions. Still, Lucifer and Azrael get along well and respect one another. Soriel. Azrael's elder brother, Soriel is the more neutral in feelings around humans and often aids in tempering Azrael, so that they do not lose heart because humans can react so oddly around death. They are very close brothers and different to the other angels in their connections. Sammael, Azrael's second elder brother. Sammael is the most emotive of them all, his rage being used to aid in destruction and violent death. Sammael is a being of immense power that rather scares his brothers, but they are very connected and need one another in order to perform their duties. Azrael wishes Sammael had not fallen in love, but is understanding of it too, as they understand the importance of love to humans. Lilith, though the wife of their brother Sammael, Azrael is not unkind to her, but is not overly affectionate either. Still, they come to her side regularly when she is suffering her cursed births, and comforts her as is his duty for the loss of life, even if they are demons born. History. Right, this part I have to stress is strictly in my universe. So it's not anyone else's fictional universe, it's just my fictional universe. Okay, so it's just in the veil. This is what their history is. When the Almighty created life, it was inevitable that death would come too. But initially it was all in a calm and easy cycle with animals living to a simple idea. But the Almighty knew that time would not last as they developed. The Almighty created 3 angels of death and buried them within the earth, placing them in a long slumber until the day a being existed that understood death and believed something must pass on or remain, a soul. The Almighty had placed rules that the angels of death could not enter heaven, or the order would be destroyed, but understood fully well that this would be the sign that their greater plan would begin. When Lucifer was accidentally involved in the killing of a primitive human, and was seen and linked to that death by the creatures, the three angels of death awoke and stepped to Lucifer's side. Having been awoken by Lucifer, they assumed Lucifer would give them their duties, but Lucifer had no idea what to do but to bring them to heaven, and asked the other angels to aid their new brothers in understanding their duties. However, at the gate the three angels were barred from entering, and so together the three of them sat waiting for their instructions, and in that time Lucifer rebelled before convincing Typhon to open the gates for the angels of death. Only Sammael walked through, as Azrael insisted to Azrael that the world of strife was Sammael's home alone. To their sorrow, they watched their brother Sammael being cast into the pit, but not to have their wings removed, yet their body was altered and made something more monstrous. Then Azrael was told of their duties, and that they would see Sammael on earth, and would not be truly separated but in duty. Azrael was the angel of peaceful death, and Sammael of violent death, while Azrael of sudden death. They were all to work around one another, guide other angels of death given to them, and soon they were too busy in their roles to think more than their duty. Yet always Azrael held a desire to comfort those that were in need, and then the incident with the Lilith and Sammael shocked Azrael, and they went to their brother, asking what had happened, and learning that there had been a plan, but in the end it had just happened by accident. Lilith had maintained an understanding to the duties of the angels, and made an agreement with Free to shield children from her, but she was also forced to birth spawn and lose the majority of it. Azrael requested to go to her side each time and comfort her, in that time talking to her and learning a lot about the most difficult tasks that Azrael often had to deal with, sudden death. When the Watchers were also punished and the world was to be flooded, it was Sammael's duty, and yet Azrael and Azrael begged the Almighty that there should not be so much death. Yet they were informed that it was what must be because of the actions of others. Still, Sammael managed to gain a safety zone for many, and once his actions had created the veil, Azrael would find the veil a safe place for them to move around, and often visits there to watch the descents of his brother and meet with both brothers in peaceful surroundings where they can discuss matters. Final comments. Azrael is a very interesting angel to me and very comforting. I always feel when someone passes that there is always something around them to help know. I mean, sometimes how is it you just know when someone's passed on, when they're old or ill? I like the angels of death I've chosen for the veil. They're separate from other angels because of my universe's law and their beginning, and I just wish I could write more with them. Anyway, thank you for listening.